Right, we have here against Kaplan.
Kaplan was a grandmaster from Puerto Rico. Later on, he played, he was a student in the United States, and he played later on for the United States. But here he was representing his home, his country, Puerto Rico. He was later on, he became also a junior world champion, and he was a very good chess player, very strong chess player. And we'll see. The game will be very complicated, very tactical one, and as usual in Sicilian, very
The
interesting
fastest
one. Yes, yeah, very interesting one.
wins.
Yes.
So you played with black here.
I played with black. Yes, knight c6. He took, I took, and here we have the Richter-Rauser, the so-called Richter-Rauser variation. With bishop g5 is always Richter-Rauser, and now bishop d7 and a6, or these continuations are a little bit different. The normal move, the usual normal move is e6 instead of bishop d7. Bishop d7 was introduced by Grandmaster Averbach from Soviet Union, and later on played by a lot of strong grandmasters, including myself. And now black has two ideas: to play later on, some moves later, e6. If not, to play on the other side with a6 and b5. This is the idea, Depends what white can do, White can play bishop takes f6 or some other moves, And after queen d2, I choose again a rare move, rook c8. Now the idea after rook c8 is to take later on immediately in d4 and queen a5.
With a strong attack on c.
Well, you try, The idea is maybe to give an exchange in c3. So he played castle. And now I took there, he took back, and queen a5. Now, the idea now is if he plays immediately f4, the normal move.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
Okay.
now black has two possibilities, or he can take immediately in c3, or he can play immediately e5. In both cases, very interesting. Yeah. So, for instance, if he takes in c3 now with the rook, you take back with the pawn. Well, if you take with the queen, he takes in c3, and then knight takes c4, and black is better. He gave the exchange, but he takes another pawn. He takes two pawns, and he has a better position. Clearly better for black. So, now moving back there, if he takes back with the pawn in c3, now you have a very strong move, e5. And after e5, it's very unclear what happens here, because probably the best move is queen c4 or queen b4. But black has always a very strong initiative here, Now, if you play queen b4, he can take in b4, or, take in before you take, and again knight takes e4. Again, very good for black, he took a pawn and very strong initiative, the position, the pawn structure is very good for black, and has compensation, very big compensation, and the position is okay. If nothing happens in 2-3 moves, black is always better. So that is the idea. So now white has to try to do something else to avoid all this, Takes, queen d4. Now he takes in f6, you take, and now king b1. Now he waits to see what happens, What is your plan? Now, e5 was bad, of course, because you give the square d5, this very important square in d5, as always, and white is clearly better. Now, queen c5 is good, because you want to trade queens and have a position with pair of bishops for black, no threat at all, and if you can activate the two bishops, black is better in all kinds of positions. So he has to move back the queen. He doesn't accept to trade queens, queen d2, and now you have time to push f5, and again, you don't have any weak pawn, double pawn of f5. And now, again, the two bishops, if possible, if you have time to put the bishop in f5 and in g7, you have a very strong position, He has to take now, and now has time to give check in b5, and king d8, of course. King d8 is very good move, because if you move back the bishop in d7, he trades in d7, and then the knight is okay, and he has in such an open position, white is clearly better,
So you didn't want to give up the two bishops?
No, no, not only this, but you have to be very careful because now for a few moves, White has still very tactical position. He can threaten something. You have to be careful 2, 3 moves, and later on in any kind of position you are all right. With Black. So finally we'll have in such a position where Black has Black bishop and White has White bishop. And in this kind of position, the initiative is very important. Who has a stronger initiative is always better and has a chance to win. That will happen in our game also. So now bishop d3, and now of course again you move the bishop. You don't accept to take in d3. Now after bishop e6, he plays very good move, knight e4. Yeah, and after queen b6, he has time to go there. Yeah. And
so you accept to give up?
You have to accept, yes, you have to accept because you don't have one tempo. If you have one tempo, it's very good for Black, but you don't have such a one. Yeah, you need one tempo, but you don't have it. The problem was that if instead of bishop g7,
yes,
you wanted to complicate more the position, and you played, for instance, bishop d5,
yes.
After c4 is very unclear who is better. Probably White is better. The bishop is still in f8.
Yes.
Because after c4, you have to move the bishop, and you can't take in c4. If you take in c4, you are lost. He takes in c4, he takes in c4, knight takes f7 check, and you lose the rook.
Yes.
So bishop g7 is forced, finally.
Yes.
Has time to take, and now c4. And now it's very clear, Black has a very strong diagonal from g7 to b2.
Yeah.
But you have to be careful because you have a weak pawn in e6. If he has time to attack the pawn and maybe take the pawn from e6, it's better for White. So now bishop d4. Okay, now bishop d4 is very good. f4, he tries to, to fix the position. If he played, for instance, immediately rook h e1, you have time to play e5, and the bishop from d4 is very strong. He stays there. So after f4, he's threatening. He's threatening already rook to e1. So you have to move immediately e5, because if he has time to play, for instance, rook h1 to h1 to e1.
Yes.
When you play later e5, he takes with the bishop. He has time to sacrifice in e5, and is probably lost for Black.
Okay.
Later on, he can give you another check in f5, and is clearly better, if not winning.
Yes.
So you have to be very careful with Black. The move order. So now he takes, and you take with the bishop, of course. And now rook now he wants to do this move, like I told you before, And now rook c5 is very good. Now it's clear. Black is playing only on the black squares, you see? Everything is on Black, but it's okay. Black is a very good game on black squares all the time, And maybe later on he tries to go with the king to c7 or to b8, So g3, and now after a5, you have a strong position like this, and you want to put again all the pieces on Black. Later on, if possible, to move again a4, rook c7, king c7 or king b8, and later on the other rook to c8 or simply other rook to f8, always on Black, always on Black, and somehow to attack the square b2, if possible.
Always on Black because
you have a very strong Black bishop, and you try to attack on the
and to avoid
the Black diagonal, to avoid
their bishop, the opponent bishop.
Yeah, but it's not so easy. You'll see. He tries to take you the pawn and to play on white squares, if possible. So he found this idea with rook e3. Now he will move the bishop to f1, trying to put the bishop on the other diagonal to g2 and play later on rook b3. Yes. And he has attack, against the b7.
Yeah.
So now, after rook e3 and bishop f1, you have to move the pawn. Otherwise, the rook comes to b3 and white is clearly better.
Yes.
So rook c1, bishop f6. Well, and in this position, No, not immediately, because now you have time to play bishop g5, no? No, he plays h4, I think.
No, let's see. It's, yeah, here it looks like he played like that immediately.
Yeah, and rook g8, a4. Okay, yeah, rook g8, threatening bishop g5. And now h4. And after h4, you have to take a decision, because the position is very clear. He wants to take the pawn from a4, and later on to come with the bishop in g2. And then white is better.
Yes.
So what to do very quickly? Rook f5, that was very strong move, because now you don't have time. If you take in a4, after rook f2, you are lost. You are lost in all endgames. You are lost in all endgames because you take back the pawn in b2, and you have all the weak pawns in g3 and h4. And later on, all the endgames are lost for white. Too many weak pawns. The structure is much better for black. The pawns from e7 and d6, they are strong, and they are central pawns. The central pawns usually win in any endgame. So, okay, he took there, and after rook f2, he has to play.
He resigned.
He resigned because he's forced. Now, after bishop e2 is the only move. Otherwise, you take with mate in b2.
Yes.
And now you take in b2, and he's forced to take back.
We take with the bishop, or
with the bishop or with the queen. Maybe it's the same, But let's say you take with the bishop. Okay.
With the bishop, okay.
Yeah.
Just a second.
So now he doesn't have time to play rook b4, because you take instead in c1, and you have at least an exchange, and you win in all kind of positions.
So there is no time for this?
Yeah, because you take in c1, and it's finished. And you take the queen and rook up, So,
yeah.
So he has to take back in b2. Therefore everything is forced, the way I told you. Bishop takes b2. He has to take with the queen. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Now you take back with check. Yeah. He has to take. Now you take in e2 with check. The best move probably is to play rook c2. Now you take in c2 and you take in g3, and the position is completely lost for white. Rook takes g3. This is terrible. It's completely hopeless for white. Yeah. And therefore he resigned. Very interesting game, and very sharp one. Every move was decisive for white and for black, and therefore the game was very important theoretically. And this line was okay. Bishop d7 and rook c8 and so on. A little bit rare, but playable. Very good for black. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, very unclear game, let's say.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gheorghiu.
You're welcome.